Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful in the studio today working on our French journals. So I have 4 going now. 2 of them are going to have a little bit more decoration and 2 of them are going to be just listed as cute little naked journals. And I actually have this one finished. I think I'm going to call it finished. So I'm going to show you real quick where I'm at. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video. And give me a thumbs up if you do. Leave a comment and let me know you're new. I'm going to leave a playlist in the description for this entire series in case you are just catching this for the first time. I think this is video number 5 and we're going to just keep working on this little series here. If you want to receive notifications and subscribe to my channel, hit subscribe, and then if you click on the little bell, you'll get a notification when I post something new. I'm also in the description, I have listed, and it's kind of a growing list of my digital kit that I'm using for this project, some other digital kits that I've purchased that I'm using, some of my old ones that I'm using, and then also any kind of products or supplies, anything like that. So it might not pertain to the particular video you're watching, but I just thought it would be easier if I have an ongoing list. That way you won't have to remember what video you saw it in and you can just find them in any video. Okay, so I want to show you real quick one thing. In the last video, I printed out envelopes using my digital kits to use for pockets and flips and that sort of thing. So on camera, I worked on this one and now I've kind of finished up what I didn't finish in the last video. And then I've added to this one and then I've put these kind of together. So I'm going to show you where I'm at. One thing that I had not done yet is find some product that I could use to try to protect this cover, because if you've been watching, these covers you notice are all very similar because I had scanned an old book and that was kind of the inspiration for these journals. I had a request to kind of copy a journal that I had previously made and sold. So luckily I had scanned the cover of that journal, so I was able to print it onto fabric and do it for as many journals as I want to do. So if you watched in the last, I think a video before last, I had actually aged this, but because they were printed on my inkjet printer, they're not color fast. So if you were to drop, water on it, you can see where I got some glue here. This is going to be covered with fabric and I'll show you my idea today. But I went ahead and grunched it up more, but I did in the meantime find something that I'm thinking is going to work. So this is from Mod Podge. I just picked it up at Walmart. I'll put a link down below. And you want to make sure you get the matte so there's not a sheen to it. But this is just clear acrylic sealer. And I just sprayed a couple coats on the covers. Obviously I had these covers made before I bought the product. So I just took them outside and sprayed them like they were. What I've continued to do is I've printed some more fabric today that I'm going to use, and I went ahead and sprayed it before I even took it off of the sticker sheet. So we'll get to that in a minute. And the only other thing that I've done to this one in preparation is this was the journal that had the spine still attached, and I had ripped off the fabric that was on it or some tape or something, so it was kind of ratty at the ends. So I just took another piece of scrap fabric that I had printed, and it had these lines on it because I didn't use my fine quality. I've mentioned that before. If you haven't used your printer in a while, sometimes if it's been a week or two, and the print heads get clogged and you come back and you have to clean your print heads, but you'll still get these stripes. Try changing your setting in your dialog box to fine instead of just normal, and that will eliminate these lines. So I had the scrap, so I've just decided to use it up for things like this. So I went ahead and just covered the ends just so that I don't see this cardboard here. And then my other cover is going to look kind of like this. If you haven't been watching, my plan is to use some fabric that I do some slow stitching on for my spine cover after everything's put together. So that's what I plan to do for this one. I'm not sure about this one, but I have some more ideas, so we'll see. So these are the signatures for this one. And I'll go through just real quick here and flip and then show you some of the things I've printed. So this is, I just went ahead and finished up the pockets that I had started And so this one is here, and then I did go ahead and decide to make this just a little tuck, so I've just glued it on the top and then in the spine too, just for extra secure. Okay, so that's that one. I think there's another one in here. This one will get sewn into my signature. But I like it just added a little interest. And again, I can still go and add things like gluing pockets to the front like I've done here. I've glued this one down, and it's gonna just be this little tuck with a kind of a closure, and I may put something here. And then the belly band I attached. This one is gonna be a secret little flippy pocket, I think, but it's gonna get glued on, so I don't need to do it now, but I need to line it still. So that one will go there after the fact. And let's see, I think that's it for this one. The back side, and then the little tuck. So one signature, this one's all ready to go. And this one was the one I put the flap inside and did some stamping on. So that pocket's ready. And then there's another one here. That's the kind where I did the notch on the front and the back. And I think those are, oh, I did do another one. Did a little more in this one. And here's a little short pocket where I used the embossed vellum for the window. Okay, second sides of those. And then the last one, a little pocket that still has the window, and then it's really kind of just a tuck. This one I'm going to just leave clipped on. I don't think I'm even going to glue it because I printed it double-sided. So I'll leave that one. This one I went ahead and attached, the one that I did stitching around the edge. I went ahead and glued this as a double pocket with an envelope that was folded in half and then glued to the page. And then this I just left the flap of this envelope as just another little tuck. And then the corner pocket. And that's it for that one. So these are ready to stitch in. So hopefully we're going to get to do that today. Okay, so I'm going to set that one aside. This is the one I did not show on camera. So I went ahead and added pockets. Now, like I've said before, you can add more things after we have them stitched in. I just wanted to mainly get the ones that I know I need to put in before I stitch because they're going to get stitched into the signatures. This one was something that I was going to use as a card, but then I ended up really liking it on this page. So I went ahead and just stitched around the edge and glued it 3 sides so I have a little pocket. So I didn't need to do that now, but I just didn't want to forget. So I did that. And then here's an envelope that's notched on both sides where I just trimmed off the top. And let's see if I have anything else in this one. So I may glue some things, corner pockets, belly bands, anything like that I can just glue on later. I don't think there's any more. So it's just that one envelope. I think I almost think I just did one in every signature. And this one, I do want to show you this lining because I really like it. This is one of the French letters from Twisted Paper Studios. I couldn't remember her name before, but the link is down in the description. And this is a really nice set. We'll be using it more later on, but some of her letters are blue or pink. They're colored, and so I just really liked that one to see through there. So I've done that one. And then actually I did glue another one. So this is still with an envelope. And it had a window, but it wasn't like it was anything special. So I really liked how this looked here, and I thought I'm just going to make it a flip envelope. So there's a pocket here and a pocket here, and they're really not attached in the middle, so you could have something, I guess, that longer that folded in there. And again, I used one of the French letters from Twisted Paper Studio that was blue, and I liked that. So I wanted to kind of show those. And then this one, again, here's just a double-sided envelope. And some of those, I guess I should mention, this one and this one were both envelopes that I had previously printed from at Roxy Creations, her French Chateau envelopes. This one's from this current French kit that I've done. Oh, I do want to show you this. Okay, this is something else that you might need to do to your envelopes. Some of them I can fold in half and they're not too bulky, but sometimes if you've had to like use some sticker paper or something or glued paper to cover up some writing, it might be too thick and bulky in your crease. You can always just slit just one side. I've left this side intact, but what's going on the inside, I went ahead and cut a little wedge out of that and then just glued the two edges so that there's pockets still. But I kind of reduced some of the bulk in the crease so that when I sew them in, I don't have that extra layer. So you might need to do that sometimes if you're working with something that's a little too thick. Okay, and then I think that's it for this one. And then the last one, I took the envelope that we had printed, I think in the second video or third video, and I cut the top off that had the bird and just made a little corner pocket out of that. And then this was the other part of the window envelope and just kind of made it one that's top loaded. That's again just one that's glued on. You could always do that later. And then this is one. This one is from Roxy Creations French Chateau envelopes also. And that's going to go there. So I think that's it for this one so far, and we'll just work on more of that later. But we can go ahead now because I have the ones that I want to stitch in, and we can go ahead and stitch this one together too. So that one's ready to go. And then I'll just show you real quick the two that I have close to finished. This one was one that already had the spine, and when you have a book that has the spine and you have a large enough piece of fabric, you can just put it all together then. This was a book, the spine was intact, and I just covered it with my printed cover. So I don't need to do a fabric cover over this unless I just want to. So that is kind of one way. If you have a book with a spine, maybe you don't even need to cover it, but this one, we're gonna act like it's one that had the spine already intact. So the way that I put it together is as what we call a floating spine. So you can see I have another little piece here, and there's a space in between the outside spine and then the inside spine. So I've gone ahead and put this one together, but we'll do this today, I think, on the other one. And then I've used my liner paper and some printed fabric to attach my signatures to. But it turned out really cute. So this is just a naked, what I'm calling a naked journal. It's got lots of fun, different, interesting paper, some French book page, and some, these are ones that I've printed from digitals. So it's all, kind of looks old just because I've used tea stain and coffee stain paper and that sort of thing. And you can do some pockets. This was supposed to be a center pocket, and I decided when I stitched it in to leave it open. I hadn't glued it yet. And that way you can even do writing here and maybe not make it a pocket, just have it be a little flippy fold thing. So I went ahead and did not glue that. So that turned out really cute. I really like how that looks. And so that's just an example of a naked journal. So this one's actually ready to go if anybody wants it. Then let's see, this one I've put together, and I haven't put the outside spine on it yet. I used it to get this together just for spacing, and I'll show kind of how I did that. But this spine, once I remove the tape, would go here. And then my fabric cover will hold that all together. So that also then is like a little floating spine. And then I printed some fabric and then my end paper to put that all together. But this one turned out really cute too. I really like it. So again, I did a pocket here that I haven't glued, but I can just leave that for whoever's going to do it. Maybe you want it to be kind of a corner pocket thing. So that's the other naked one ready to go. So I just need to figure out my spine, and we'll work on that. Probably not in this video, but I'll put that aside too. Okay, so the things that you're gonna need to do the spine that we are putting together the journals that we have ready for that point. I printed out several things I wanna show you before I get to putting these journals together, just to give you some ideas. So this is the color that it came, and it's probably not translating on camera very well, but it's kind of a turquoisey teal blue color with kind of a tea stain background. One thing that you can do is adjust colors to fit your project. So this one would go with my project, okay, because this is a little, kind of that color. But I decided I wanted to make it more customized to my journal. So this is, like I said, what it was, and I've printed it on white paper just so you can see. This was what I was originally thinking of using. I went ahead and adjusted the color, but then I also did something else, and I want to show you. So I'm working on a MacBook Pro, so depending on what kind of computer you have, yours might be a different program that you use. And by program, I just mean the one that comes on your computer to print out photos or anything. So mine is Preview, but if I pull up Preview a photo or a document, I would pull this up and I'm able to go into tools and adjust the size, adjust the color. So if you go into adjust color, at least on mine, I can adjust the exposure, contrast, hue, saturation, coolness, that sort of thing, and also sepia. So what I did to change this one to kind of match my journal better, I wanted it a little more grayed out. So I reduced the contrast. I don't remember if I upped the exposure a little or reduced it a little bit, but I did some sepia also, and that kind of grayed it out a little bit. Adding sepia is kind of like tea staining something, you know, to different degrees. So that's how I achieved this little bit different of a look. You know, it's not as bright, but it's still that kind of French blue color. So I've printed these two I'm going to use on one of the journals, and I've printed it on the linen paper that was tea stained. So it has a little bit of texture. Actually, this one does not. So I'll have to maybe pick which one. If I can cut it in half and use half on one side and half on the other side. But I'm going to use one of these for this journal because I kind of liked how these colors looked together. So you're going to see them next to each other. So one of those, I'll use that. And then this one, you'll notice, is a little bit darker, but I printed it from exactly the same JPEG, okay? So nothing's different except for what I printed it on. So this one was printed on some tea-stained, very lightly tea-stained linen paper, and this was printed on coffee-stained. And when I say coffee-stained, sometimes I do mix my tea and coffee together just to get a little bit different of a color. But I did this on the Elementary, a recycled paper from Walmart, and I do have that paper down in the description. I really like the texture of this paper once it's been coffee stained. So I printed it on that, and it just gave you that much more of that aged sepia color. So I'm going to use this one I liked on the inside of this cover. So it's just a tiny bit different. But doing that, you can kind of vary things just by printing it onto, changing the color a little bit, and then printing it onto different papers. So I'm going to use those two. Then the other thing that I printed it on are some fabrics. So one of the things that we need to put this journal together are the spine pieces. And the way that I stitch them in is I stitch them to a loose piece that I've attached to this piece of fabric. So I think I'm going to do this one for this journal, the lighter color. And what I'm going to do is I have my piece cut somewhere. What did I do with it? Is it this one? Yes. So this one is the one that has the spine still intact, but I want to make the floating spine. So I cut this a little bit smaller, top and bottom, a little shorter, and then a little bit narrower than my spine, so that I have that little gap like you do in a book. There's kind of this little gap where it feels like it's just your bend in your spine. So you want to leave that space there. So I cut this piece just a tiny bit smaller than my spine. Usually if you cut a 1/4 inch either way and then split it so you have like 1/8 of an inch all the way around is usually enough. But I kind of just eyeball it. So I have just that little gap there if you could see. Okay. So, you know, cut any kind of piece. This is just a piece of recycled sort of packaging, and that's going to go there. So what I need to do, because this, once I stitch these in, you're going to see a little bit of that. I don't really want to see the cardboard. You could just leave it if you wanted to, but I want to cover that, and then it's going to get glued to here, and then the end paper will cover all of that, just like this one. So I have a piece of fabric that I attached to that flat piece, this flat piece here, and then the end paper covered all of that. So there's a little bit of that fabric in here that you can actually feel. So you want something that's pretty thin. And I think I'm going to use this one. I've used this, we can call this scrim or cheesecloth. You can see through it. And this is the first time I had tried printing on this, but because I used my sticker paper, it worked out great. And it's just, if you see it against the white, you see that little bit of pattern on it. And if you've never worked with this before, I've got some different fabrics because I've printed on some different things. This is what I'm talking about. So I will put a link down below for this. In lots of my older videos, I called this scrim because that's what it was when I bought it. And then when I ran out and purchased scrim, it wasn't the same. But then I found this cheesecloth that is like food grade cheesecloth. It's a little nice, more dense, I guess. And this is more like the scrim that I have. So like I said, I'll put a link to this. I think I just got it on Amazon. But on my sticker paper, I just stuck it down just like anything else that I've printed. And I've shown this in previous videos, but if this is the first time you're seeing this, I take full-size sticker sheet, take the backing off, put my fabric down, iron it so there's no wrinkles, and then trim around the edge and then print on it. So I thought I would try this, and I like how it turned out. So I'm going to use this one, I think, on this piece, and that'll go this way. And then my end paper, I'm going to use this lighter one. Will go over the top of that. So that's what we're going to do for this one. And then the other one, the little darker one, I went ahead and I printed on darker fabric. So I've already torn a piece because I used it for one of the smaller journals, but I have enough to do this one as well. So that'll go over my little flat piece here. We'll glue this down, and then we'll sew our signatures to that. And then I'll use this darker lined paper for my liner. So this is what we're gonna do. So you need 2 pieces. So if one sheet isn't big enough for that, you'll need to print 2, depending on the size of your journal, of whatever your end paper is going to be, and then some piece of fabric. And I like it to come out maybe an inch and a half at least on either side. So you'll need a width of fabric that will fit for that piece. So you're going to need that. The 2 pieces I need here, again, I decided to do the width of this journal the same as the other one, which ended up being an inch and a half. So my secret to making that nice rounded spine is to use paper towel holder, a recycled paper towel holder. And I've cut this one up, but they start out like this. So just save these. And I liked it because it's already rounded. So save your paper towel holders, and then you just cut it open. And then of course it's not straight. It's really hard to cut that. You can't do it straight with scissors. But then I square it up with my guillotine, because I'm usually end up only using small sections at a time. So I end up, having a bunch of those that I just have. So this one's already cut. So I made it my inch and a half, I believe. Yes, inch and a half by the height of my book cover. Okay. And then the flat one that's going to go inside, you can see, is just about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And again, I just kind of guesstimate. It's not a big deal. I just like it to be a little bit smaller than my actual book cover. And you can even do it a tiny bit shorter than that. I might cut that one just a little bit. You want it the length of your pages, which is usually smaller than here. So I think I might trim just a tiny bit off of that one. Okay, so we have our 2 pieces. We have our end papers. And then the other thing that I'm going to show you, even though I'm not going to finish this today, I want to show you my idea before I start working on it. So I had to think about what kind of spine covers that I want to do something decorative. And so I went through my papers today. Oh, I wanted to show you this too. So this is fabric printed on white fabric, that same pattern. This one you see is darker. And so I want to show you what colors I did these on. So I have a whiter white also, but this one is kind of an ecru color compared to the bright white, which you can't really tell on this one because I printed on it already. But I have a bunch of white made up. So today I did an off-white, and then this darker kind of tan color, and then my scrib. So I've been printing some different colors fabrics too, just to match kind of with my end papers. So it gave me the idea to go look through my digitals and see if there was anything that I could use for my spine cover. So to do that, we'll take this one that has the spine in it already. To figure this one out, if you watched my videos, I accidentally dried this, flattened this under an atlas that said World Atlas on it, and my world words transferred. So that determined kind of how far I need to go here. I ended up, I think, needing a 4.5 inch wide piece for here by the height of my book, okay? So that's kind of what started me on that. The other ones don't have to be as wide because I'm not really hiding anything. They can just come over maybe an inch, you know, if I want. So we'll figure that one out. But I went through my digitals and I found this one and I just loved it for the spines of my book. So I think I'm going to use this one on one of the naked journals because I ended up, when I printed it, I had a little fold. It folded over when it fed through my printer. And so it didn't print this whole stripe. Okay, it wasn't flat enough, but I can still use this. I just need to use it on a shorter book. And then, so this one was done on the tan, but I really like how aged that color came out. And I think I'm going to use it. This one, yeah. Because this one I used the inside a little darker also. So I think I'm going to do a spine cover with this one. Okay. And then on just white fabric, this is just on white. You can see just less of a difference, but a little bit. This one was done on the ecru, I'm going to call it, the off-white fabric. So it's just, I don't think it's even showing up on camera, but in real life I can see it a little bit. You can see maybe here in the wider parts that this one has a little bit more of that tea stain look. The other thing that you could do is tea stain your white fabric or your off-white fabric. Tea stain it first so it has some stains and things on it too. Maybe it has some splatters, and then print on it. And these I still have on my backing. So I went ahead, I can feel it in my texture. I went ahead and sprayed it a couple of coats. Do this outside because it's very smelly and, you know, it's has harmful vapors. So do this outside. But I sprayed a couple coats on this. So I haven't tested it anywhere, but I feel better that it's a little more durable. So my plan for this one is I will use, I think, this off-white one maybe, and use it on this for this cover. Or no, this is going to be the darker one, so on the other one. So here's my plan. On this spine, I'm going to use this off-white one. And if you look, my measurement was perfect. From here, from this little bit I need to trim off, to here where it changes, kind of here, is 4.5 inches. And so that's exactly what I needed to cover everything I wanted to cover. And I really like that for a spine. And then the thing that I'm going to do different on this one, because it's a little bit larger of a journal, so I can get away with it, I think. I'm not sure I'll do it on all of them, but my plan is when I take this off and stitch it, I'll take this backing off. I'm not going to cut the size that I need yet. I'm going to leave it a little wider, more like 6.5 inches, and I'll show you why here in just a second. Now I'll be able to use this still a few more times, but I'm thinking if I trim that, the height is, I need to leave this little edge top and bottom because my spine it's just barely going to fit. But I'm going to cut it more here and stitch this rose, because if you look at that rose, it already looks like it's embroidered. And so I'm thinking that on this one, I want to stitch this with the leaves and everything, the part that goes off the edge. And then once I've stitched it, I can cut just around that, cut this away. So this is going to be still on the fabric, but then this is just going to be parts of the rose and have them just be glued down onto here. I'm just thinking that might look kind of neat. So that's my plan for this one. The other ones, I think I'll go ahead and just cut them off here because they're smaller journals. And I think that's still going to look nice, even if that's, you know, cut off there. So you kind of get the idea of how that would look. So I'm going to do that, at least on this one, and do some kind of, you know, maybe stitch some other viney flowers like they're continuing, and I don't really know yet, but I'm going to do something on this one. And then another idea that I had is when I saw this, it kind of gave me the idea of you could do like French dictionary or French book page or something like that. And then this has just the scrim over it. You can do something else more plain on this part of the cover, and then actually use this as your spine. This is part of the kit. So say you haven't made your cover yet. I just really like how that looked. So you can use maybe one of the digitals or something, or book page, music page, anything, and do this type of a cover. And I put the scrim over it because you can see through it. And that kind of just gives you that fabric book cover feel, like book cloth. And then use the fleur-de-lis is the right width to be able to use that as your spine. And you could embroider on this or not, you know, just leave it like that. So that's just another idea. Okay, so let's get to sewing in signatures and see how that's gonna go. So since I have this one here, where's my piece that I need? My flat piece is here. Okay, so it's a little bit shorter than my book. Now, one thing that I want to do is I want to cover these ends. Even though it's going to be covered with fabric this way, I don't want to wrap it around. So I'm going to just use some paper or something, or I could even use a scrap of fabric if I wanted and just cover that. So, you know, it could be paper. It could be anything. I just don't want that to look like cardboard. So maybe since this looks to be the right width, maybe if I go this way. Okay, so I'm gonna just take off a piece of that. And then I need a piece of glue paper here. And I'm gonna be using some of this pH neutral adhesive. There's a link in the description, or art glitter glue, PVA glue, anything like that can work. So I'm just gonna put, I think I'll put it here. One thing about these silicone spreaders, they keep your fingers clean, but I sometimes forget, and this all peels off, but you don't want to start gluing with it because it'll peel off into your new glue. So you do want to make sure that you clean those off before you start using them again. Okay, so I'm just gonna, okay, that's ready. And then I need to add my fabric to that. So I'm gonna use, for this one, I'm gonna use the scrim. I'm almost long enough, so I'm just gonna use this end. And I'm just gonna eyeball how wide it needs to be because it doesn't really matter. I'm gluing it down. So let me just kind of pick a spot here. And I could tear this, but I know it's not going to tear. Nice. So we'll do that. Okay. And then I want to put glue on this. Okay, so you want to stick that down and let that dry. Okay, and then once this is dry enough, I can sew my signatures in. So what I want to do is make some holes, and it's easier to see from the other side because I can draw them on. I'm going to use a ruler. I'm not going to be exact about this. Let me get in here. I don't really need to be exact. So I like to do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I'm using some recycled padding from a box that I just like. It works out really well. You can fold up a towel or something like that. That way you have something to poke through too, okay? So I'm gonna use a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. And so I'm gonna kind of just make a line where I think the center is, and then I'm gonna go to either side of that because I have 3 signatures. So I'm gonna kind of split that closer maybe to the edge. So I'm just eyeballing it. It doesn't need to be exact. This is probably more the middle. And then I'm gonna put my ruler down just to kind of get them straight, but I don't really measure so much. This is almost 8.5 inches. So, 4 1/4 is the halfway. So I might put one there, and then maybe like a 1/4 inch from the end, could be a 1/2 inch, whatever you like. And same here. And then I kind of go halfway between those. So I'm just eyeballing, honestly. What looks like halfway. Now, if you are particular, you can measure these, but I don't need to be that perfect. And then I'm going to go to my center this way, and then I just see where my dot is, and I'm just going to kind of make one across from it. So again, you don't have to be exact. And I don't even have to make marks with the pencil. I could actually just take my pokey tool and make them right now. go back and do these maybe. And then go find this other line and do the same thing where I'm just kind of, okay, so I have all my holes and they're not perfect, but that's okay. And I can kind of see them through this other side because this is the side we're going to be working from. So I have to decide and be consistent about where your top is. You can write T if you need to, but I usually just make it on my left side. So I'm going to flip that over, and then I need to get my signatures. So these are this journal. Okay, let me zoom back out here. So I'm going to take my first signature, and I just want to make sure that wherever I have a pocket or anything that's getting stitched in, that I have it where I want it to be. And part of the reason I do 5 is because maybe I missed these. So I want each thing to have at least 2, maybe 3 holes where it's capturing it. So I just want to make sure that everything is kind of where I want it to be. Okay, so that's good. And if you want, you can use some clips. These are just some little 1-inch bulldog clips. You can use giant paper clips or anything, but that would keep everything together where I want it to stay. Okay, so I'm gonna just line this up. This is my top, and I'm going to kind of center my signature, and I can see the holes. So I just can see the holes, and then I'm gonna take my pencil and I'm gonna make just a little mark where all my holes are. This way I don't have to measure anything. I don't need any fancy tools. And then I could move that aside, lay this down, and then just go in the spine with my pokey tool. Okay. And then I'm going to take my next one. And same thing, I just want to look and make sure my envelopes are where I want them. I'm going to line them up to my center hole and my third one. Okay, so those are my signatures. Flip them back over. Okay, so now I need a thread and a needle. I keep this cigar box that has all my bookbinding things in it. And you can use something like bookbinding thread. This is pretty heavy. You can use just like upholstery thread, or button thread is heavier than just regular thread. And then you can wax it with, this is just a little wax circle in this, and you just slide your thread through that and wax it if you like. It does make it move smoother. And then I'm going to be using something else, which is, this is some beading thread. So it's very strong, but it's not too thick. So I'm going to use this. And then for a needle, you can find bookbinding needles, or you can actually even just make your own. You want something with an eye large enough to fit your thread, whatever you're using. And then I like it to be pretty narrow here so it doesn't make my hole too much bigger than it is. And I like it to have a dull end. So you could use, you know, upholstery needles or crewel embroidery needles, that sort of thing. Or you can actually take your needle, a regular needle, and using some wire cutters, snip the end off so that it's blunt, and then maybe file that down a little bit. And then that way you won't have too sharp of a point that will split your thread. So this is what I'm using, is just kind of a dull needle. So I'm going to take and go a little more than double my length of my spine. And then I'm notorious for having my thread fall out because it's pretty thin, you know, for that big of an eye. So this doesn't always last if I only do one knot, but I'm just going to do one knot. That way it's easy to get off, but at least it won't just pull out, fall out. Okay, and then I like to start from the back side where I will be tying off instead of anything that you'll see. And I like to start in the middle. So I'm going to start in the middle of the first row and kind of leave a little tail and grab my first signature, find the center, and go through my center. Make sure I don't pull all the way. Leave something here. And then I'm going to go to the next hole. And then through my second hole. and then through the bottom. And then back through the same hole. And back through the center again. And then up one. To the top one. And then back through that hole again. And then pull everything tight. And make sure everything's tight here. And then we're just going to do the same thing with the next two. So I'll fast forward this. Okay, I didn't mean to make that look so hard, but you do struggle a little sometimes. But now I have my signature sewn to my inner spine piece. And then I can put it now in my book. So, where's my cover? Make sure I have the front. Okay, so now, because this is a little smaller than it will really kind of nestle in there nicely. So I can actually kind of feel where it needs to go. This is a little harder to deal with, this scrim, because it kind of curls and rolls. But what I want to do is kind of make a line somewhere where I think my glue needs to at least cover there. It's going to get covered up, but that helps me know where I put my glue. And it's a little less on this side, I think. Okay. So I'm going to do one side first and then the other. And where is make sure this is clean. And I want to go right to this edge. Make sure I get a good coverage on that edge. And then I want to kind of nestle that in there where I can feel it. And then use a credit card or something to help you. And just make sure you get that little crease in here really well. Okay, and then I need to do the other side. Now, it's a good idea to have, if this is wet, feeling wet, to have a piece of parchment or wax paper, something that won't stick to this. A sticker sheet backing would work. So just use something like this so it doesn't stick while it dries. So I would just leave that and let that dry. And then we can add our end paper to that. So let me grab the other one. And you could also just put some weight on this. So maybe I'll put it over on the floor. This is actually pretty dry already. This side's a little more wet. So maybe I'll put the paper on this side first. So I want to trim this. I was kind of messy. I like grungy things, so that's okay. So let me trim. because my paper will actually cover that. I need to measure. I want it to go to all the way to the end of that book cover. So I want it to be maybe 5 1/4, 8 1/4. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces, and that looks good. So let me grab a book page, and we'll make sure this is clean. Okay, there's one side. Maybe I'll try putting the glue on this first and see how that works. Okay, I think that's good. Now I just need to maybe put a closure on this, let this dry really well, put a closure on it, and then do my spine cover, and then add, you know, cards and different things to it. So I'm gonna go put something heavy on these so that it can dry. And it's a good idea to use a piece of non-stick something. This is some sticker sheet backing, just so that nothing sticks to that. So I'm gonna go put this aside and work on the other one. Okay, so the other one's drying, and now I need to put the cover, or sew the signatures into this one. And I'm just going to do it basically the same as the other one, except for I need to fix the spine. So let's see. I know I want to do that one 1.5 inches also. And I have my 2 pieces. So I think for this one, what I want to do is I want this little gap. And so I'm going to just flip this over and get this situated where I want it, and put a little tape. And I don't have any artist tape. You can use artist tape. I'm going to use a little bit of this blue tape. And I'm just going to line it up here so that I have a guide. And then just leaving a little gap. And then the same with the other side. And you can put something here to kind of make sure you have it even. Because I'll glue this to my finished piece of stitching once I have that ready. And then this will be my little inside spine, like that. So it will just help me when I go to glue this down. So I need to do the same thing I did with the other one and prepare this by putting some paper or something. I'm just going to use, I used fabric on the other one, but I can use paper. And then I need to find my piece of fabric. And I can trim some off here to get rid of my border. Okay, and I'll let that dry. So I'm going to do this one just the same way that I did the last one. So I don't need to do it on camera, but it's going to work out the same way. I have my spine kind of spaced where I know it needs to be. And then I'm gonna sew these in and then glue it down and add my papers. And then that one will be ready to go too. So I'm not gonna do this on camera because it's just the same way that I just did this. So I'm gonna finish this up, and it will be probably a week before I get another video up. I'm heading on vacation, and so I will get back to this and we'll do some fun things inside, and hopefully I will maybe have worked. I don't know if I'll have time, but I'll start working on my pieces for the back of my spine, and then we'll go from there. So have a great rest of your day, and go make something. Bye.